There comes a time when each of us walks through a valley where the shadows are thick, where the silence is loud, and where fear whispers that we are alone. It's the kind of fear that doesn't shout, it seeps. It enters through small cracks, little thoughts, quiet doubts. Quiet doubt. It disguises itself as reason, as caution, as preparation. But underneath it all, it drains strength, steals joy, and paralyzes destiny. But fear is not a master. It only reigns where truth is absent. The presence of fear does not mean the absence of courage. It means you are standing at the threshold of breakthrough. Worry may circle your mind like a vulture, and anxiety may try to wrap its cords around your heart, but they do not have the final word. They are not your inheritance. You were never called to live enslaved to what might go wrong. You were never designed to dwell in the shadows of a what-if. You are not the child of chance. You are the child of purpose. Your breath was spoken into existence by a higher voice, and that voice never spoke fear over your life. That voice called you to rise. That voice called you to stand. That voice declared, "Do not be afraid," not as a suggestion, but as a command from love. The truth is, worry is rooted in the illusion of control. We worry because we think it's all up to us. But the weight of the world was never meant to rest on your shoulders. Let go of the lie that says you have to figure it all out before you can take a step. The path opens when your faith moves forward, not when your fear has been satisfied. Fear demands explanation. Faith just moves. And anxiety often feels like noise, like static in the soul. But when the storm rages, peace is not found in the absence of the waves. It's found in the presence of something greater than the storm. You don't overcome fear by pretending it's not there. You overcome fear by lifting your eyes higher, to the hills, to the heavens, to the one who was and is and will be unchanging, unshaken, and unwavering. When you fix your heart on what is eternal, what is temporary loses its grip. That's not theory. That's truth. Fear melts in the fire of love. Worry disappears in the light of purpose, and anxiety fades in the arms of peace. So let today be the day you shift your gaze from the shadows to the light, from the problem to the promise, from what you can't control to the one who holds it all. You were not made to live a life of torment. You were made to live a life of power, love, and soundness of mind. Let the chains break. Let the walls fall. Let the night give way to morning. Because fear may come knocking, but it doesn't have to enter. Worry may rise like a flood, but you have an anchor. Anxiety may press in, but there is a stillness waiting to hold you. You are not a prisoner. You are a warrior. Not because you have no fear, but because fear no longer has you. Fear is not your master. Truth is fear has a voice. It speaks with confidence. It tells you you're not enough, that the future is uncertain, that the past has already sealed your fate. Fear doesn't ask for permission. It declares itself the authority in the room, and often we believe it. We start living under its rule, accepting its whispers as truth, adjusting our decisions around it, shrinking back from dreams because of it. But here's the reality. Fear is a liar. It may sound convincing. It may even feel safe at times, but it is not your master. Fear doesn't have a throne. Fear can only dominate when truth is absent or forgotten. It doesn't need to destroy you. It only needs to distract you, to cloud your perspective, to draw your attention away from what is actually real. And what is real? That you are chosen, that you are loved, that you are stronger than what's chasing you, that your future is not being written by fear, but by the one who created you with purpose before you ever took your first breath. You weren't created to be ruled by anxiety or bullied by fear. That voice in your head telling you to give up, to stay small, to avoid risk, that voice doesn't belong to the one who called you. Truth doesn't paralyze. It empowers. It sets free. Fear keeps you bound in imaginary chains, but truth hands you the key. Think about how many opportunities fear has cost you. The conversations you didn't start, the vision you never pursued, the bold move you backed away from. And now think, what if the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough was a lie? You don't have to fight fear by force. You conquer fear by flooding it with truth. Not empty positivity, not shallow affirmation, but truth grounded in who you really are and why you are here. Fear says you can't. Truth says with God, all things are possible. Fear says you're alone. Truth says he will never leave you nor forsake you. Fear says you'll fail. Truth says I am working all things for your good. The power of fear is not in its strength, but in our agreement with it. The moment you stop agreeing with fear, it begins to lose its grip. It may still knock on your door, but it will find you no longer answer. It may shout, but your ears are tuned to a higher voice. You may feel fear, but you don't have to follow it. The presence of fear doesn't mean the absence of faith. It means faith is being called to rise. Even courage trembles, but it still moves. It still chooses truth even when the lie seems louder. This is how you reclaim your freedom. Not by pretending fear isn't there, but by reminding yourself that it doesn't get the final word. You look fear in the face and say, "You're not my master anymore." You speak truth louder. You speak purpose louder. You speak hope louder. And little by little, fear retreats. So the next time fear tries to sit on the throne of your life, remind it, that seat is already taken. Truth is seated there. The truth of who you are, who God is, and what you're here to do. The truth that no matter what comes against you, you are more than a conqueror. That you are not defined by your emotions, but by your identity. You were made to live in freedom. Not the kind that denies fear, but the kind that chooses truth anyway. Letting go to let faith rise, there is something in all of us that wants to hold on. We cling tightly to what we know, what we can predict, what we believe we can manage. Control feels safe. It feels powerful. It gives the illusion that we can prevent failure, avoid pain, or guarantee success. But there's a truth that rises above the illusion. Faith cannot fully flourish in the same soil as control. The tighter your grip, the harder it is for faith to grow. When we try to control everything, what we're really saying is, I trust my plan more than I trust the one who made me. And that's dangerous territory. Because the life of faith isn't built on having all the answers. It's built on walking with the one who is the answer. When we choose to trust, even in uncertainty, even in what we don't understand, we make space for something far greater than our limited control. We make space for divine strength, provision, and guidance. Letting go is not weakness, not passivity. Letting go is a bold, courageous act of surrender, not to chaos, but to a higher order. It's saying, I don't have to control this because I know who does. It's choosing to believe that even when you cannot see the whole picture, the one who holds your life sees from beginning to end, and he does not make mistakes. Sometimes the most powerful moment in your life will be the one where you finally open your hands. When you stop trying to fix what you cannot fix. When you stop trying to force open doors that were never meant to open. When you stop running in circles because you think if you just try harder, everything will fall into place. That's the moment when faith has room to breathe. Abraham had to leave the comfort of what he knew and step into the unknown. Moses had to lift a staff with no guarantee of what would happen. Peter had to step out of the boat onto waves that could swallow him. None of them had control. All of them had a choice. And in choosing to let go, they stepped into the power of faith that moved mountains, split seas, and walked on water. You and I are no different. You don't need control to be victorious. You need trust. You need obedience. You need the courage to release what's not yours to carry. The moment you do, you'll start to see what only faith can reveal. You'll begin to live not by fear, but by purpose. There are things in your life right now that you may be holding on to. Fears, timelines, outcomes, expectations, even pain. And maybe it's time to release them. Not because they don't matter, but because they are safer in stronger hands. The hands that created the stars are more than capable of guiding your steps. Letting go might feel like free falling at first, but you are not falling into emptiness. You are falling into grace, into sovereignty, into arms that have never dropped anyone who trusted them. When you release control, you're not abandoning your life. You're aligning it with its true source. So let faith rise. Let it fill the space where anxiety once lived. Let it lead you where logic stops. Let it grow where control used to reign. Because the life you were meant to live is not built on your ability to control. It's built on your willingness to trust. Faith flourishes not in clenched fists, but in open hands. And the miracle you're waiting for, it might be on the other side of letting go. Fear loses its power when you focus on purpose. Fear is one of the oldest and most persistent forces that work against us. It whispers lies, tells us we are not enough, warns us to stop before we start, and convinces us to settle for less than what we were created for. But the truth, the unshakable truth, is that fear only holds as much power as you give it. And what steals that power away? Purpose. When your eyes are fixed on your purpose, the reason you were created, the mission written in your heart, fear begins to fade. It loses its grip. You see, fear thrives in uncertainty, in distraction, and hesitation. But purpose shines a light so bright, so compelling that fear can no longer hide in the shadows. When you understand your purpose, it fuels courage, it fuels action, it fuels faith. Purpose is more than a vague feeling or a passing dream. It is a divine assignment, a call from the one who formed you with intention. When you focus on this higher calling, fear becomes a temporary visitor rather than a permanent resident in your life. Purpose reminds you that you are not here by accident. You are here because there is a mission that only you can fulfill. Consider the great figures in history, those who made a difference against overwhelming odds. They faced fear every day, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But they pushed forward because their purpose was greater than their fear. They understood that the voice calling them onward was louder than the voice trying to hold them back. When fear tries to paralyze you, remember that you were designed for more. You have been given gifts, talents, and dreams that are not meant to be hidden or diminished. They are meant to be unleashed. Purpose gives you a reason to rise every morning, to fight through the doubt, and to keep moving even when the path is unclear. It's important to realize that fear will never fully disappear. It is part of being human. But you have a choice. You can let it control you. Let your purpose control it. When purpose takes the lead, fear becomes a signal rather than a barrier. It becomes a signpost pointing you toward growth, toward breakthrough, toward the very things you were created to accomplish. The power of purpose is that it transforms your perspective. It changes your story from one of victimhood to victory. Faith is the weapon against fear in the battle for your heart and mind. Fear will always try to claim victory. It comes with 1,000 faces: worry, doubt, anxiety, and despair. But there is a weapon that cuts through all these chains and breaks the grip of fear. Faith. Faith is not just a hopeful feeling or a wishful thought. It is a divine force, a powerful armor that protects you and empowers you to stand tall when the storms rage. Fear thrives on uncertainty and the unknown. It whispers to you that the future is bleak, that you are alone, and that the obstacles in your path are insurmountable. But faith declares the opposite. Faith proclaims that no matter how dark the night, dawn will come. Faith declares that you are never alone. A higher power walks with you every step of the way. Faith is not passive. It is not merely hoping for things to get better. It is an active trust that moves you to action, that motivates you to keep going when everything inside says quit. Faith challenges the lies of fear and replaces them with the truths that come from beyond what your eyes can see. It is a spiritual force that changes your perspective, your attitude, and your response to the challenges before you. The story of faith in the face of fear is as old as time. From the ancient prophets who stood against armies to the humble servants who dared to believe in a promise, faith has always been the great equalizer. It empowers ordinary people to do extraordinary things. It fuels the courage to face giants, to cross impossible deserts, and to build legacies that last beyond a lifetime. When fear tries to convince you that you are weak or unworthy, faith reminds you of your true identity, that you are a beloved child, created with purpose and strength beyond your understanding. Faith anchors you in the truth that every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every trial is an opportunity for a miracle, but faith must be cultivated. It grows through daily practice, through prayer, reflection, and choosing to believe even when the evidence is scarce. Like a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. When fear comes knocking, faith is the door you open to let courage in. Many people falter not because they lack ability, but because their faith wavers. The moment fear gets a foothold is the moment faith must rise. Remember, faith is not blind. It sees beyond the present moment to the promises that lie ahead. Trusts in what is not yet visible, knowing that what is unseen is often more real than what is seen. When you wield faith as your weapon, fear loses its power to control you. You stand firm in the face of doubt, you persevere through challenges, and you keep your eyes on the ultimate prize. Faith turns fear from a prison into a platform, a place where you grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. So, when fear tries to paralyze you, remember this: faith is greater. Faith is stronger. Faith is the weapon you carry that no enemy, no hardship, and no darkness can overcome. Take up your faith today and let it guide you out of fear into a life of courage, peace, and unstoppable strength. Courage comes from knowing who you are. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is the understanding of who you are that empowers you to face fear head on and move forward anyway. When you truly know your identity, your purpose, your value, and your place in the grand design of life, fear loses its grip and courage rises naturally from within. Many times people mistake courage for boldness or recklessness, but real courage is deeper than that. It's a quiet confidence rooted in a solid foundation of self-awareness and belief in a higher purpose. When you know who you are, courage becomes less about daring the impossible and more about standing firm in your calling, no matter the storms around you. The history of great leaders, heroes, and visionaries shows us this truth repeatedly. They weren't fearless. They were certain of their identity and their mission. This certainty gave them a strength that fear could not shake. It allowed them to stand alone if necessary, to face opposition, and to keep moving forward despite overwhelming odds. Knowing who you are is not just about confidence in your talents or abilities. It's about understanding your spiritual and moral foundation. It is the recognition that your life is not random or accidental, but designed with intention, meaning. When fear tries to whisper doubts, this knowledge acts as a shield, reminding you of the bigger picture. There is a power that comes when you anchor your identity not in the opinions of others, not in your successes or failures, but in the truth of your existence. You were created with a purpose, and your life has eternal value. When you grasp this, courage no longer depends on circumstances. It becomes intrinsic, flowing from your core like a river that cannot be stopped. This courage also demands vulnerability. It requires the bravery to look inward honestly and to accept both your strengths and weaknesses. It asks you to face your fears, not deny them, and to take steps forward despite uncertainty. This kind of courage builds character and resilience. It transforms challenges from obstacles into opportunities for growth. When you know who you are, you start to see your challenges differently. Instead of fear and avoidance, you respond with faith and action. You understand that every trial is a test of your courage, an invitation to demonstrate that your identity is greater than your fears. You begin to walk boldly in your purpose, knowing that courage is not about being fearless, but about being faithful to who you are. Remember, courage is contagious. When you stand firm in your identity, you inspire others to do the same. Your courage lights a path for those who struggle to find their own strength. Your confidence in who you are becomes a beacon of hope and empowerment. So today, commit to discovering and embracing who you truly are. Dig deep into the truth of your origin and your calling. Let that knowledge build an unshakable foundation of courage within you. When fear arises, and it will, stand firm in your identity and let courage be your response. Courage does not come from the absence of fear. It comes from the power of knowing who you are and who walks with you. It comes from the assurance that you are made for greatness, that your life matters, and that no fear can overcome the strength of a courageous heart. Faith transforms fear into peace. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that can grip the human heart. It can paralyze us, cloud our judgment, and steal the peace we desperately need. But there is a force far greater than fear: faith. Faith has the power to transform fear into peace, to replace anxiety with assurance, and to steady the soul amidst life's storms. When fear comes knocking, it often demands attention. It speaks loudly, urging us to worry, to question, and to doubt. But faith speaks even louder in the depths of our hearts. It is the voice that says, "You are not alone. You are held. You are protected." Faith reminds us that there is a divine order to life, a higher plan that we may not see, but that is perfectly orchestrated for our good. The secret to overcoming fear lies not in denying its presence, but in anchoring ourselves in faith. Faith is the bridge that carries us over the turbulent waters of worry and fear. It is the unshakable belief that no matter what challenges arise, we are part of a greater story that cannot be undone by fear. This transformation begins with trust. Trust in a power greater than ourselves. When we surrender our fears to that power, we unlock a peace that surpasses human understanding. This peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of a divine calm amid trouble. It is the inner assurance that says, "Though the winds rage, my foundation is secure." Faith also shifts our perspective. Instead of focusing on the potential dangers or what might go wrong, faith opens our eyes to possibilities and hope. It reminds us that every challenge is temporary and that every trial carries a lesson or a blessing we have yet to understand. With faith, fear loses its dominance because we see beyond the immediate and trust in a future filled with promise. Moreover, faith gives us courage to act. It is not passive but active. When fear tries to freeze us in place, faith propels us forward. It encourages us to take the next step, to face what we fear and to move boldly into the unknown. This is the faith that moves mountains, not by avoiding fear, but by confronting it with trust. The peace that comes from faith is also contagious. It spreads from one heart to another, creating communities of strength and hope. When we live with faith, we become beacons of peace in a fearful world. Our calm in the storm becomes a testimony to others that fear can be overcome. However, cultivating this faith requires discipline and intention. It means daily choosing to focus on what is true and trustworthy, rather than what is frightening. It means filling our minds with promises that strengthen our spirit and surrounding ourselves with reminders of hope. Prayer, meditation, reflection on sacred truths. These are the tools that build faith and diminish fear. They remind us of the eternal presence that walks beside us, the unseen hand that guides us, and the unfailing love that holds us steady. In every age, the greatest leaders, prophets, and heroes have demonstrated that faith is the antidote to fear. They teach us that peace is not found in circumstances, but in a heart that trusts. This same peace is available to each of us. It is the inheritance of those who dare to believe that beyond fear lies a life filled with calm, confidence, and courage. So, when fear threatens to overwhelm you, remember this truth. Faith transforms fear into peace. It is the light that dispels darkness, the calm that stills the storm, and the power that strengthens the weary. Embrace faith today and watch as your fear fades, replaced by a peace that will carry you through every challenge.